Buenos dias. Good morning. My name is David Skeel. I'm the chair of the board, and I'd like to welcome all of you to this public meeting of the Financial Oversight and Management Board for Puerto Rico, which is being held at the Puerto Rico Convention Center and being broadcast by video conference. I'm especially pleased that we are able to meet in person again for the first time in over a year. It's a joy to be here in San Juan together for this meeting. As always, I'd like to ask everyone who is connected to the video conference to cooperate on conducting a productive meeting, including keeping yourselves on mute. And for those in the audience, we appreciate if you would keep your devices on silent. You will be able, if you'd like to ask questions or make comments during the meeting, there will be a number of opportunities to do that, which I will signal. So let me begin with a roll call to see which members are present, either here in person or on the video. Starting with Andrew Biggs, are you here?
I'm present via video.
Thank you, Andrew. Arthur Gonzalez.
I'm present as well by video.
Thank you, Arthur. John Nixon.
Here, present.
Antonio Medina.
Presente.
Justin Peterson.
Present.
And Betty Rosa. Dr. Rosa, are you on yet? Dr. Rosa is not yet on. Hopefully she will be joining in a few minutes, and I'm here as well. So we have 6 of the 7 board members at the start of the meeting, and Governor Pierluisi.
Present. Good morning.
And we also have the Governor of Puerto Rico. Thanks for once again joining us, Governor. We greatly appreciate the in-person conversation that we'll be able to have. So we have a quorum, and I can officially call the meeting to order. I'd like to ask Mr. Jaime El Khoury, our General Counsel, if you would, as usual, serve as Secretary for the meeting.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaime. Thanks again to all of you who are here at the public meeting at the Convention Center, as well as those who are participating by live stream. The live stream is at the board's website, www.oversightboard.pr.gov. I'm pleased to say that once again the meeting is available both in English and in a simultaneous Spanish translation, and it is also being translated into sign language. If you log on to the English version of the website, you get an English audio. If you log on to the Spanish version, you get a Spanish simultaneous translation. We'll be handling the questions and comments that come in online through the form. We will be handling them by posting answers to our website. So if you'd like to give us a comment or a question online, please complete the form with your name and any questions or comments you might have. We'll take comments until 15 minutes before the end of the meeting. And as I said, we'll provide answers to the emailed comments or the website comments later on our website. For folks who are here in person, there will be a number of opportunities to provide comments during the meeting. We have 7 fiscal plans that we'll be certifying, and there will be 3 or 4 opportunities to give us comments in person. And the way the comments will work, as usual, is you will have up to 2 minutes to make a comment. And we would greatly prefer that the comments be focused on the subject matter of the meeting today, which is these fiscal plans rather than other matters. Our agenda for the day is we have 8 topics to go through. First is approval of the minutes of the last public meeting and of executive sessions since the last public meeting. Second is administrative matters. Third is reprogrammings under Section 204C of PROMESA. Fourth is contract review under Section 204B of PROMESA. Fifth is an update from our executive director. 6 is fiscal plan certifications, and we will have 7 fiscal plans to certify. And I'll say this again, but the way we're going to do it is we will do 2 at a time. We'll do the first 2 fiscal plans, we'll take comments, we'll vote on certification, we'll take the next 2 fiscal plans, comments again, vote on certification, and then we'll take the last 3 fiscal plans. So there'll be at least 3 opportunities for comments. Finally, we'll have any other matters and adjournment of the meeting. So starting with approval of the minutes, our first order of business is to approve the minutes from the last public meeting, which was held on April 23 of this year. The proposed meetings are in the meeting packet attached as Appendix A. The second set of meetings or of minute approvals is approvals of a series of executive sessions. These executive sessions were held on April 25, April 29, April 30, May 7, May 11, May 12, May 14, and May 21. So first the public meeting, then the executive session, starting with the well, actually, we'll do them together, starting with the public meeting minutes and the executive session minutes. Are there any comments or questions from the board on the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the board's public meeting held on April 23rd, 2021, attached as Appendix A, and the minutes of the executive sessions held on April 25th, April 29th, April 30th, May 7th, May 11th, May 12th, May 14th, and May 21st, attached as Appendix B in the form presented to the meeting.
Thank you, John. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Justin. As I will do throughout the meeting, I will take a voice vote, beginning with all in favor. I'll ask those in favor to say yes. I'll then ask for any no votes and then ask for any abstentions. So let me start with those in favor. Would all in favor please say yes?
Yes.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. So all the members present voting in favor, the motion passes. The second item of business that we have is a couple of administrative matters, starting with a resolution about I guess it's unanimous written consents. Would somebody like to make or be willing to make that motion?
Mr. Chair, I would make the motion.
Thank you, Andrew.
Resolution. Between the adjournment of this meeting and the opening of the board's next public meeting, the board may consider in executive session any and all matters that is authorized to consider under PROMESA, including first, any certification determinations authorized by PROMESA, including certification determinations under Section 206 of PROMESA. Second, any submissions or authorizations authorized by PROMESA. And third, any filings authorized under Title III of PROMESA in each case that are set forth as part of the vote to convene such executive session. The board may also act by unanimous written consent between meetings in accordance with the bylaws, with such consent to include consent by electronic transmission.
Thank you, Andrew. Do we have a second?
Sure, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Antonio. Once again, I'll ask first for a vote of all in favor. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Once again, unanimous. Thank you. We have one other motion, which has to do with unanimous written consents. Would somebody be willing to make that motion?
I move to confirm and approve the unanimous written consents adopted by the board since the adjournment of the board's last public meeting, which are listed in Appendix C here too.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Antonio, and thank you, John. Once again, I'll begin with votes in favor. Would all in favor please say yes?
Yes.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries unanimously once again. The next item of business that we have is reprogramming requests under Section 204C of PROMESA, and I believe Natalie Dresko will be presenting.
No, I think it'll be Ginorli and Maldonado. Ginorli?
Right here.
Oh, thank you, Ginorli. I didn't see you. Take it away.
Thank you, Chairman Scale. Good morning, board members.
Ginorli, you got to bring the mic all the way to you.
All the way to me. Okay. We now present for the Oversight Board's action a series of recommendations on reapportionment requests from the government of Puerto Rico, attached hereto as Exhibit 1. I would like to highlight the following reapportionments. Request number 1, the Puerto Rico Police Bureau requesting a reapportionment from payroll to cover certain obligations, including prior period payables related to the police reform. The recommendation is to approve the request as sufficient supporting documentation was provided with the request. Next one, request number 3, Department of Justice is requesting an extension of $2 million in CapEx funds until June 30th, 2022, to continue with the development of the new registry program in connection to the Caribe application that will optimize the usage and improve the processing of information. The recommendation is to approve the CapEx extension as requested. Next page. Request number 11, the Puerto Rico Department of the Treasury is requesting an extension until December 31st, 2021 of $3.2 million of funds assigned for the preparation of the Commonwealth financial statements. The recommendation is to approve the extension request to allow the agency to continue with the preparation and audit of 2019 and 2020 financial statements. Item 13, Corporation of Fine Arts is requesting to extend fiscal year 21 CapEx funds until June 30th of 2022 for the completion of certain leasehold improvements and equipment purchases. The recommendation is to approve the extension for the agency to continue with the procurement process to complete the projects. Item number 18, the Comprehensive Cancer Center is requesting to extend fiscal year 2020 CapEx funds for the completion of several construction and purchase of equipment, mostly for the administrative offices and the radiotherapy center. The recommendation is to approve a revised extension request of $37.7 million until June 30th, 2022. Next page. And lastly, the Department of Education is requesting a reapportionment among several concepts of spent for the Pell program. During our review, we requested supporting documentation to evidence the need in other benefits cost concept, which the agency did not provide. As such, the recommendation is to partially approve the request. This concludes my presentation, unless there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginorli. Are there questions or comments? Governor?
Yeah, on behalf of the government of Puerto Rico, I thank the board staff for making these recommendations, and I urge the board to approve the reprogramming requests as recommended by the board staff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Any other questions or comments from the board? Do I have a motion to approve these reprogrammings?
Yeah, I move to approve.
Thank you, Antonio. Second?
I second.
Thank you, Justin. Once again, I'll begin with those in favor. Would all in favor please say yes?
Yes.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. The fourth item of business we have is contract review. Under Section 204B of PROMESA, we have a couple of, I think we have, or maybe it's just one contract, one or two contracts to discuss and potentially approve. And I believe Alejandro Figueroa, our infrastructure director, will be walking us through the contract approval. Thanks, Alejandro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you and good morning to the board members, Governor Pierluisi, Executive Director Dresko, and all of those viewing us through our live stream. Today, we have for your consideration a proposed power purchase and operating agreement and an asset purchase agreement between the Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority and Punta Lima LLC. The proposed power purchase and operating agreement contemplates the reconstruction of a 26 megawatt wind farm originally built in 2012 and which suffered substantial damages as a result of Hurricane Maria. The proposed contract is for an initial term of 20 years and, according to Prepa, results in 12% average annual savings when compared to the terms of the original agreement. Prepa has also proposed to purchase the existing transmission line developed and currently owned by Punta Lima for a payment of $3.7 million. Prepa has represented that purchasing the transmission line would be more cost-effective than building a new line in a similar location, and doing so would allow for the interconnection of projects to the same location, increasing therefore the ability to develop additional projects in that area. Based on the information provided by Prepa, the proposed contract is consistent with Prepa's certified fiscal plan, and as such, we recommend the board approve both the proposed power purchase and operating agreement and the asset purchase agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandro. Are there any questions or comments on this proposed contract approval, Governor?
Yeah, on behalf of the government of Puerto Rico, I thank the board staff again for making this recommendation. Actually, this is consistent with the public policy of the government of Puerto Rico. We intend to rely ever more so on renewable sources of energy. So it's about time that we have this wind farm back in operation. Thank you again, and I urge the board to follow the staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Governor. Any other question or comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I wanna support the recommendation. As most people that live in Puerto Rico, this is a project that was working before the hurricanes, and it suffered very, very significant damage as the hurricane came right around where, in the area in the southeast side of the island where this project is located. Certainly, I believe this board should support renewables, and getting this project back online, I believe is a significant priority for us in Puerto Rico, and representation of the fact that we're rebuilding the island to the current state of technology as it should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. Just to reiterate what Antonio said, this was a functioning source of renewable generation, the wind farm going into Hurricane Maria, and it's very good news that we will hopefully be on a path to have it back online again. It's a nice, belated but nice bit of evidence of the continuing recovery and the continuing future of generation in Puerto Rico. I'll take a voice vote once again. Would all in favor of approving this contract please say yes?
You need a motion, Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry. Thank you. John, will you make a motion?
Yes, I move that we approve the PPOA contract between Prepa and Punta Lima as attached as Exhibit 2.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, John and Antonio, and thanks for the correction, so we can have an official vote rather than an imaginary vote. Once again, I'll ask for a voice vote. Would all in favor please say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. In just a minute, our Executive Director, Natalie Jaresko, will give an update. But before she begins our update, I just wanted to say I've neglected to mention a couple public officials who are here. Omar Marrero, I see, who is Executive Director of FOF. Thanks so much for coming. The Prasa CEO, Doriel Pagan, is here as well. I think there are several other government officials as well. Thank you very much for attending. It's an important meeting, and we appreciate your taking the time to physically be here and to be part of the meeting. Natalie, do you want to give an update?
Thank you, Chairman Skill. In our last board meeting, The board certified 2 important fiscal plans for the Commonwealth and for CRIM. And as you know, the certification of fiscal plans is one of the critical ways that the Oversight Board is working with the government to achieve PROMESA's objectives of fiscal responsibility, access to the capital markets, and setting up a foundation for economic growth. The path toward fiscal plan certification is laid out in the law, balances competing priorities, and requires the achievement of certain actions. These multi-year plans include important structural and fiscal reforms, from making it easier to do business on the island to transforming the energy infrastructure and education systems on the island. Every fiscal plan is a living document that changes and evolves with Puerto Rico's economic reality. They are updated at least annually to reflect Puerto Rico's latest fiscal and economic situation. Today, I would like to turn to the discussion of 7 additional fiscal plans for your consideration and certification. These 7 fiscal plans are for the University of Puerto Rico, Prepa, Prasa, HTA, Kosak, Coffina, and Pridco. Over the last several months, the Oversight Board has been in constructive dialogues on all these fiscal plans with the government, with the leaders of the instrumentalities, as well as with many other stakeholders in each case. Collectively, these fiscal plans provide an ambitious set of reforms that complement the Commonwealth Fiscal Plan and will continue to put Puerto Rico on a path toward long-term economic growth and opportunity. The fiscal plans we are reviewing today provide a forecast of revenues and expenses over at least 5 years, outline efficiencies, capital expenditures, and investments over time. They direct resources to frontline service delivery and maximize other important priorities. And they provide a roadmap to expanded opportunity, growth, and hope. We are now at the end of this annual process and ready to propose the 7 fiscal plans for certification to you. These fiscal plans are about opportunity. So let's take this opportunity and put in place the building blocks that ensure each instrumentality is stable, has the funds to provide the services needed by the people of Puerto Rico, is efficient in using those funds, and implements the reforms that ensure Puerto Rico's successful future. Mr. Chairman, we can turn now to a specific discussion on each fiscal plan.
Thank you, Natalie. And as I mentioned at the outset, the way we'd like to do the discussion is we'll do the first 2 fiscal plans, so we'll present and discuss UPR and Prepa, and then we'll have any discussion from the board. We'll have an opportunity for public comment, and then we will vote on certification. We'll then do Pridco and Coffina, same thing, and then we'll conclude with Prasa, HTA, and Kosak. So starting with UPR, I believe Maria Lopez. Oh, gosh, I'm having trouble seeing that, the front row. The director of Kosak, UPR, and Pensions will be describing and presenting the UPR fiscal plan. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, and good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members, Governor Pierluisi, Executive Director Javesco, and all those viewing through the live stream. I would like to recognize Dr. Maida Vedasco, Vice President of the Governing Board of the University of Puerto Rico. Higher education is critical to the economic development of the island, not only by providing opportunity for its students after graduation, but also for its potential to unleash the creativity and innovation possible in Puerto Rico. The University of Puerto Rico is not only an educational center, but a key institution that builds communities up throughout its 11 campuses, increasing resilience of the surrounding areas and making opportunity accessible to all. Students deserve a quality education that provides them with a solid foundation for their future. Effective and efficient management is key to providing it. Since 2017, the goal of the Financial Oversight and Management Board, through its UPR fiscal plans, has been to encourage sound fiscal self-management and ensure a stable financial future. The fiscal plan intention is to enhance the academic aspect of the institution as the top priority. It is not intended to impact students, faculty, or the learning experience. UPR must reflect upon these realities and acknowledge the potential savings a reduction in bureaucratic petitions will imply, savings that could be used towards other initiatives. The fiscal plan upholds that enhancing efficiencies because of the administrative and back office consolidation would benefit the institution and improve the student experience as a whole. The 2021 fiscal plan continues to emphasize the 4 core elements which focus on improving operations and increasing revenues, while maintaining accessibility for all students to benefit from an improved university system. First, revenue enhancement and diversification. The 2021 fiscal plan maximizes opportunities to increase revenue from non-tuition sources, including grants and awards, ancillary services fees for providing training to external institutions. Additional sources of revenue include modest tuition increases, slot machine fees, dues and fees, and other revenue measures which total $48 million in revenue measures described. Second, operational efficiencies. UPR existing operational model with 11 semi-autonomous campuses creates unnecessary complexity and drives higher cost. The UPR fiscal plan continues to identify personnel and non-personnel efficiencies, prioritizing the latter to make sure all campuses remain operational by reinvesting in faculty. These efficiencies achieve expense savings in non-academic payroll of approximately $7 million. Pension reform. As a result of history of decisions by the university to contribute insufficient amounts to the UPR pension fund, the fund faces significant challenges, with 57% of liabilities unfunded. The UPR fiscal plan outlines the proposed reform and discusses some continued risk concerns. This expense measure should bring savings of approximately $40 million. Fourth, fiscal governance and controls. UPR should maintain an adequate central control and transparency into campus finances. The 2021 UPR fiscal plan includes fiscal reforms such as cross-campus and component unit controls on how revenues are collected and expenditures are reported. What is not included in the certified fiscal plan? No reduction in campuses, only consolidation of back office and services focused on improving operating efficiencies. No reduction in academic payroll. On the contrary, a 3% increase is provided for faculty payroll. No reduction in student services. No student should be denied an education and safeguards have been put in place to ensure this affordability with the support of UPR budgeted scholarship funding of $11 million. In addition, there's an enhanced access to the means-tested independent scholarship budgeted in the Commonwealth with a cumulative amount of over $129 million available. Finally, the fiscal plan supports the creation of a medical student loan forgiveness program with Commonwealth funding of $30 million. The reduction in appropriations from the Commonwealth is accomplished by increasing revenue streams and by reducing pension contributions and staff attrition in non-teaching positions. Access to federal funds is greater than ever before via the federal COVID response, including CARES, CRSP, and ARP, with over $400 million in assigned funds, which are nearly equally divided between institutional and student aids, providing an additional $200 million to the aforementioned scholarship funding. There's a new access to federal disaster reconstruction funds via FEMA and CDBGR, estimated at $352 million. In April 2021, the U.S. Department of Education released additional formal guidance on how to calculate the maintenance of effort requirements associated with various federal relief funds, including CARES, CRRS, SAA, and the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund. The guidance explains how states and territories should determine what level of state spending on elementary, secondary, and higher education is required in order to comply with the MOE requirements in these relief packages, as well as procedures for seeking waivers. The Oversight Board is analyzing this guidance to determine what, if any, implications the MOE requirements could have on the Commonwealth and UPR. Provided in this fiscal plan, the Commonwealth's 2021 fiscal plan and the fiscal 22 budget. The 2021 UPR fiscal plan does not suggest that taking this path will be easy. It is complex, requiring focus and attention to goals and targets. But if implemented well, will yield valuable results for students, faculty, and administration. Prior to COVID, and even to this date, the university response to multiple transformation reforms has been marked by delays. We now have a singular opportunity for UPR to turn around its performance of measures while applying the COVID-related federal funds to the new needs of the university and the FEMA funds to rebuild and transform the university. We have a window for success. Building an institution, a stronger institution that will drive economic development for the island and provide an opportunity for its residents. Let's act while the window is open. The Oversight Board will continue communicating with the UPR Governing Board, its administration, faculty, and students. We will listen, analyze, and discuss when required. UPR must remain the preeminent engine of the economic development of the island and transform itself into a 21st century education institution. We deserve no less.
Thank you, Maria. As I've mentioned, we'll do the Prepa presentation, then we'll do comments and questions about both fiscal plans, first from the board and then from the public. So Prepa, and it's once again Alejandro Figueroa will be presenting when ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today, we present for your consideration the 2021 Fiscal Plan for the Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority, better known as Prepa. Transforming Puerto Rico's energy sector is a fundamental structural reform and one of the pillars on which Puerto Rico's recovery and future economic development is built on. The energy sector reform aims to provide Puerto Rico residents and businesses with access to sustainable, affordable, reliable, resilient, and customer-centric electric services. Achieving these objectives requires making progress across 4 key elements: implementing regulatory reform, transitioning Prepa's transmission and distribution and generation operations to professional, experienced private operators, procuring and developing the necessary resources to achieve Act 17's 100% renewable energy target, and restructuring Prepa's legacy debt and pension obligations to enable an exit from Title III. The proposed fiscal plan provides a path toward the implementation of each of these elements and the achievement of the objectives of the Puerto Rico's energy sector reform. The proposed plan builds on the progress achieved by Prepa in implementing some of the key elements of the transformation. Prepa's progress in commencing competitive processes for the procurement of large quantities of renewable resources is an encouraging step towards a modernization of the island's generation fleet. Equally encouraging is the progress achieved to date in transitioning responsibility for the operation and maintenance of Prepa's transmission and distribution system to LUMA, and the launch of another competitive procurement process to select one or more professional operators to operate and maintain Prepa's existing generation assets until their scheduled retirement. Looking forward, through LUMA's improved and more efficient operation and the ever-increasing integration of renewable resources, Prepa's electricity rates are projected to remain stable, become less subject to global fuel price volatility, and customers are projected to avoid a necessary increase in their monthly bills as energy efficiency and distributed generation programs are implemented. To support these outcomes, the proposed fiscal plan identifies the execution of maintenance and capital improvement programs, the continued and timely procurement of additional renewable resources, and the transition to private professional operators as priority areas. Puerto Rico's generation resources require urgent attention. Prepa's generation units are on average 45 years old, twice as much as the average in the United States, and are heavily reliant on outdated, inefficient technologies and expensive, environmentally harmful fossil fuels. Prepa's dependence on expensive and volatile fossil fuels also impacts energy costs, representing 33% of a customer's monthly bill. As such, modernizing the island's generation fleet through the integration of renewable resources is paramount to the energy system's long-term sustainability and Puerto Rico's economic recovery. To that end, the proposed fiscal plan reflects Prepa's compliance with the island's Energy Public Policy Act, better known as Act 17, and the Integrated Resource Plan approved by the Puerto Rico Energy Bureau, or PREP. In particular, the proposed plan assumes an accelerated integration of renewable resources in accordance with the schedule mandated by PREP, the elimination of coal-fired generation by FY28, and the progressive elimination of fossil fuel resources over the next 30 years. Achieving compliance with Act 17's renewable energy target requires procuring large quantities of low-cost renewable resources. The current process approved by PREP seeks to procure 3,750 megawatts of renewable resources, plus 1,500 megawatts of battery storage within the next 3 years. Puerto Rico's ability to integrate large quantities of renewable resources at the lowest possible cost is dependent on the integrity, transparency, and timely completion of these competitive processes. Going forward, PREP, the P3A, and LUMA must work collaboratively to achieve these objectives. Improving the island's energy system is not only dependent on the modernization of its generation fleet, but also on achieving meaningful improvements in the quality of service and the efficiency and professionalism with which the energy system is managed. Transitioning responsibilities over Prepa's generation and transmission distribution operations to professional experienced private operators is expected to result in a better performing system, improved compliance with Puerto Rico's energy policy, and improved service quality. The selection of LUMA marked an important step towards these goals. Over the last year, LUMA has worked to comply with all the requirements to take over responsibilities, including the development of key filings before PREP, such as the performance metrics against which their performance will be judged, the capital improvement plans to be implemented to rebuild and improve the grid, and the initial budgets under which they will operate. LUMA's successful transition on June 1st will mark a historic milestone in Puerto Rico's path towards a modern energy system. But the work does not end there. Prepa and the government must continue the process to competitively and transparently select one or more operators to manage Prepa's existing generation assets so that they are adequately maintained and operated until fully retired in accordance with the PREP-approved Integrated Resource Plan. As previously mentioned, in real terms, the proposed fiscal plan projects stable energy rates. Base rates are also lower than those projected in the 2020 fiscal plan, primarily due to the benefits from LUMA's operational improvements, the progressive increase of renewable resources into the system, as well as improved macroeconomic factors. However, this optimistic outlook is at serious risk of being undermined should Prepa be forced to pay its current contracted debt in full. Doing so would require increasing rates by, on average, 5 to 6 cents per kilowatt hour, as shown by the gray bars on this page. Restructuring Prepa's legacy debt to sustainable levels is paramount to avoiding unsustainable increases in energy rates, which is why the board is determined to achieve a sustainable debt restructuring and exit Title III in FY22. Over the next 30 years, customer bills are projected to remain flat due to the adoption of energy efficiency and distributed generation programs. As customers upgrade their appliances, change consumption habits, and install solar equipment in their properties, their monthly consumption will decrease, offsetting any increase in the cents per kilowatt hour energy rate. As illustrated here, the average bill of a customer who consumes 500 kilowatt hours per month is expected to slightly decrease from the current average of $100 per month. However, failure to achieve a meaningful restructuring of Prepa's legacy debt may end up causing customers to experience increases of as much as 30%. Prepa's energy system is outdated and fragile as a result of years of underinvestment and the lack of a proactive maintenance and capital improvement program. Developing and implementing a coherent plan for rebuilding the grid, free of political interference, and focused on reducing outage and improving customer experience and quality of service is a fundamental piece of the energy sector's transformation. During the last year, LUMA has developed a comprehensive capital improvement plan spread across various capital improvement portfolios that seek to invest up to $3.8 billion in the next 3 years. LUMA's capital plans allocated significant amounts of funding towards addressing and improving operations across Prepa's customer service functions, transmission and distribution infrastructure, as well as measures aimed to improving workplace safety and enabling the integration of renewable generation. Examples of areas LUMA has prioritized include improving customer service and satisfaction by investing in modern customer service technologies, installing advanced metering infrastructure, and repairing and fixing streetlights. Enhancing the T&D system through proactive maintenance and repairing of overhead and underground lines, hardening transmission lines, and replacing damaged equipment. Upgrading system controls and facilities to enable the integration of renewable energy, battery storage, and demand response initiatives. And supporting the safety and well-being of its employees by improving training, providing enhanced tools and personal protective equipment, and improving human resource and information technology systems. LUMA's proposed investments are far-reaching and are expected to result in marked improvements across different operational metrics. For example, through the implementation of the many measures proposed by LUMA projects customer satisfaction will increase by 31% by 2024, employee safety records will improve by 48% by 2024, and the average number of outages and duration of those outages experienced by customers will decrease by 30% and 40% respectively by 2024. All in, the proposed fiscal plan provides a path for Prepa's operational and financial reorganization and the successful transformation of Puerto Rico's energy sector. Through this transformation, residents and businesses can expect to see better and improved energy services, reduced price volatility, and benefit from a modern energy system that supports the island's economic development. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandro. In just a minute, as I said, we'll have any questions or comments from the board, followed by any public questions or comments. But before we start, I want to note that Dr. Betty Rosa is now with us, and so we have all 7 board members in person or online. So with either UPR or Prepa, are there questions or comments from the board? Antonio,
I believe the governor.
We start with the governor.
I would like to briefly comment on both of the fiscal plans being proposed and to be certified by the board. First, I'll deal with Prepa's fiscal plan. I thank you very much, Alejandro Figueroa, for your presentation. Very well laid out. The first thing I'll say is that this fiscal plan is generally aligned with the public policy of the government of Puerto Rico. In particular, it is fully consistent with Act 17, which sets forth the energy public policy of our government. At the same time, it is fully consistent with Act 120 of 2018, which laid out the framework for the transformation of Prepa. I support the fiscal plan as being proposed, and I join the board in actually looking forward to a better day in Puerto Rico in terms of the performance of our energy sector. Enough. We've had a bankrupt public utility for too long, an incompetent public utility for too long. And I know that the transformation that is underway will make a difference. With respect to the UPR fiscal plan, Maria Lopez, I thank you as well for your presentation, but I should say that there, I have a different vision. And actually, it comes from the fact, it results from the fact that the long-standing policy of the government of Puerto Rico has been to provide for and respect the fiscal, administrative, and academic autonomy of the University of Puerto Rico. In my view, the better course of action for the board would be to give the University of Puerto Rico a series of recommendations along the lines that the fiscal plan provides, but not force upon the University of Puerto Rico the board's recommendations. There is one area in which I take objection, one particular area in which I take objection, and that is the reduction of the transfers that the the central government of Puerto Rico provides the University of Puerto Rico. I mean, the board has already reduced by 40% the funding that the University of Puerto Rico gets from the central government. And if there's any area that is essential, it's the higher education area. And I keep urging, I know the fiscal plan, again, is reducing the transfers. I disagree with that aspect of it. Lastly, I'll say that I am concerned about tuition increases, additional tuition increases at the university. And I say this on a very pragmatic basis. The tuition level, the tuition fees that the University of Puerto Rico is currently charging are comparable to those charged by private higher education institutions in Puerto Rico. So we should keep that in mind. This is a different market. We should make sure that the University of Puerto Rico continues to be competitive in terms of attracting students and being actually the source of so much talented people in Puerto Rico. So that's what I'll say. It's just a matter of vision, a matter of long-standing policy of the government of Puerto Rico. A lot of the recommendations are well taken, and I don't quarrel with them. It's just the way in which they're being imposed. So that's enough on my part for now.
Thank you, Governor. Other questions or comments from the board? Antonio?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I want to, in a way, echo the words of the governor. But first, let me say thank you to the staff. I know how hard you work, and I truly support all the help that you provide to us. I believe in the case of the university, we need to recognize the importance of the university to the society in Puerto Rico. The university is a key component for our economic growth and is one of the most important engines to provide our citizens an opportunity for growth and development. I understand the priorities that have been laid out in the fiscal plan, and I recognize the importance of change, the importance to implement improvements in our university system to make it more efficient and stronger. However, I do believe that we need to balance the speed of change with the needs of the university and their ability to implement soft changes. Over the last year, as you probably all know, we have faced some real issues with accreditation of programs. And if you go to our campuses, you can see that there's significant opportunities to improve our physical facilities as well as the administrative processes. However, I do believe that as a member of the board, I have a responsibility to make sure that we pay special attention to the university because it's such an important asset of the government of Puerto Rico. I believe that we need to provide further technical support for the university to be able to close the gap. Right now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe we're about $94 million in terms of the reduced transfers from the central government. And I believe that, based on my discussions with school officials, I don't believe we're there yet. We have started a process of direct communication between this board, the president of the university, the board of trustees, and we've had a number of meetings. And I agree with most of the statements made during the presentation. However, in order to maintain the stability of our university system, I do believe that we really do need to find how to bridge this gap. There might be other sources of funds that we can identify or develop to close the gap, and this may include the development of a strong fundraising operation, looking at our alumni, maybe the sale or the licensing of intellectual property. Certainly, we can look at operations improvements in the way that we go about managing our university campuses. And certainly, we need to take a close look at the federal funds, whether we can find other sources of recurring and non-recurring federal funds. But ultimately, I believe that the current fiscal plan reduces funding too far and too fast. Our objective is to have a stronger university. But I believe the plan as it's laid out today makes it very difficult for the system administrators to achieve this goal. In summary, I am not against the changes that must be made to make the university stronger, but we must strive to find a common implementation approach and a timeline that allows our university to evolve and execute the necessary changes in a timeline that allows for efficiencies and alternate sources of revenue to be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. Andrew would like to make a comment or question as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize for having to access the meeting remotely today. It seems there is agreement that the UPR needs to make a number of important reforms. UPR is and can be an economic engine on the island if it is run efficiently, effectively, if it is run in a way that provides the best possible service to the students who attend the UPR. It is very tempting to say that we should simply make recommendations to UPR for such reforms, or that we should phase those reforms in over a longer period of time. And my own view is that those recommendations or recommending reforms or phasing them in, if we take that approach, it simply means the reforms are not going to happen. And it will be very, it's tempting to take that approach because it would reduce the political pressure on the board, it would reduce political pressure on the government. The problem, though, is we have been going after this problem for 4 years. We're not starting the process of working on reform with UPR today. We've been going at it since the board was instituted. And the problems we face and the problems we recognize are the same today as they were 4 years ago. And very, very little has happened. We've been trying to fix the pension system, which is being run into insolvency. We've talked about consolidating and making more efficient the administrative side of the UPR to reduce cost, but also to make the system work more effectively. We've talked about trying to enhance, particularly on the graduate side, revenues through somewhat higher tuition, which would still be lower than what most mainland state universities are charging. But what I want to be very clear here is as tempting as it is to not move forward on this, if we do not move forward, it means the reform isn't going to happen. I have very little confidence that these important steps will take place if the board does not push forcefully on this. So I just want to be clear in my view about what the choices we face are. The choices are not between reform today and reform tomorrow. It is really a choice between reform today or not having it occur. Because if the board does not push this point with UPR, they will not do it on their own. 4 years of experience, I believe, have shown us that they're not in the position to do that. So as much as I appreciate the point of view of my colleagues on the board, I think it is important that we move ahead on this because UPR is so important. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. We have Justin would like to make a question or comment, and then John Nixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would like to thank Maria for your overview and all of your hard work on this. I want to underscore one thing that Maria said that I think is really important no matter what the outcome today, is that dialogue with UPR officials remains ongoing. And I am in support of anything that we can do to increase support and funding to UPR. It's because I think it's an indispensable engine of Puerto Rico's growth, both in attracting world-class companies and manufacturers, and also in equipping the next generation of entrepreneurs and engineers that Puerto Rico needs to continue to grow. So as everybody knows, I'm focused on ending bankruptcy and getting out of Title III. Since I've been on the board, that's been my focus. And I think that the board has made great progress over the past 6 months in that regard, and I'm proud of that. I am concerned, though, that we would only view ending bankruptcy and ending Title III as the goal, and that we would not focus as much as we should on economic development. And I think University of Puerto Rico is a key component of that. I met with the president of the university, Dr. Jorge Haddock, on Tuesday, and I was really impressed with him and of the work that he's done over the past 3 years. You know, he's cut his budget. His budget has been cut more than $300 million. And during the pandemic, as other universities on the mainland saw attrition increase, for UPR, attrition decreased because of all the commitment and leadership taken by Dr. Haddock and by his team and the implementation of distance learning. So this matter is difficult for me because I agree with the need for reforms, and I appreciate all the work that's been done by members of the board, including by Dr. Rosa, who's an educator. I'm not. She's far more qualified than me to have opinions on education. But at the same time, I do share some of my colleague Antonio's concerns that this is a lot right now, and it's especially given all that UPR has done. I'm concerned about pressing too hard, and I also appreciate the comments of the governor. So the bottom line is we need a strong UPR for Puerto Rico to grow, and I believe that the board's responsibility is to focus on economic growth, and I'm concerned that there's too much here in the way of cuts that would be detrimental to that. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. John?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the time to make a few remarks. Since December, I've spent hundreds of hours on the fiscal condition of Puerto Rico, coming up to speed, learning about the budget, learning about the available revenues, learning about the expenditures, as with my other colleagues on the board. There are no easy choices here. Puerto Rico is in a very, very difficult financial position. And I really appreciate that there are important things, but there are a lot of important things out there that where the board can focus and work on. I totally agree that Puerto Rico is part of a long-term economic revitalization plan for Puerto Rico. But we have to kind of hit the reset button here. We've got revenues that are a lot lower than the expenditures that have been taking place here in Puerto Rico. And it's very difficult to bring the budget into balance and to have a certified financial plan that's in balance, especially based on decisions that were made previously. This reduction in transfers wasn't decided in this current fiscal plan. This was done previously. They delayed it a year to give the University of Puerto Rico time to implement it. And I think it's important to really kind of make sure we understand what's happening here. Dr. Betty Rosa and I had the opportunity to spend a few hours last week on the phone with, or on Zoom, with the student body presidents of the 11 campuses. And I want to make it clear that what the board is talking about here are not impacting students or impacting teachers or impacting the instructional or research missions of the university. We're talking about administrative back office functions that need to take place. I spent 5 years as a vice president, as a chief financial officer of a major university. And there are a lot of back office functions that can be consolidated that can save millions of dollars. And when you look at the $94 million that people are talking about here, 40 million of that is pension reform. I'll tell you what, if the University of Puerto Rico doesn't go through the pension reform, it's going to be a much bigger number. And that's what's going to really cause the university system some serious problems going forward. There's about $40 million or a little bit more in revenue enhancements that the board has worked with the university on, where they can come in and increase revenues to offset that reduction in transfer. Some of which the universities agreed to, others they seem to not want to implement. And then when you get down to the actual back office consolidation, there's about $7 million. And let me just state that having run the administrative functions of a university, certainly those back office functions don't just make sense to save money, they make sense from a student perspective. If you have a student that's attending classes at different campuses, they're getting different tuition bills. They're having to deal with different administrations. The University of Puerto Rico doesn't need 11 procurement departments. The University of Puerto Rico system doesn't need 11 accounting offices, 11 HR offices. Okay, there's plenty of work that can be done where those back office functions can be consolidated. And that's what we're talking about as a board. I would never support a plan that was going to negatively impact the students. But what the students are hearing is that because of the board's actions, there are going to have to be campuses closed, that they're not going to have access to education, and that's just not right. That is not correct. At this point in time, the University of Puerto Rico system is going to receive over $400 million in federal stimulus money. $400 million. Half of that, about half of that's going to go to scholarships, which is going to improve access to the students here in Puerto Rico. And the other half is going to go to help offset some of the revenue loss based due to the pandemic. So there's really never been a better opportunity for the University of Puerto Rico to look internally and identify these back office functions and identify ways that we can change business. I made a call to the students. I said, come forward with your ideas. I don't like seeing the students trapped in the middle of this. Clearly, our intention is not to hurt the students. As I ran the administrative functions of my university, my objective that I always talk to my team about was every dollar that we spent on the administrative side was $1 less that could go to the academic and research mission of the institution. And so it was incumbent upon us to make sure that taxpayer dollars and that tuition dollars were being spent in the most appropriate and effective way possible. We had a fiduciary responsibility to do that. So that's what we're trying to do as a board. I do think that we need to move forward. I think that based upon the enhanced federal money that's coming in and the ability that we are here, I mean, we're certainly not trying to lose any accreditations or shut any campuses down, but the University of Puerto Rico needs to step up and get serious about doing things differently. We can't the solution is not always to just throw new money at the problem. And so for that reason, I'll be supporting the University of Puerto Rico fiscal plan.
Thank you, John. Other questions or comments? I'd like to make just a couple comments about both UPR and Prepa. UPR has been discussed at length, so I'll be repeating what others have said, but I am of the view that now is the time. We need to move forward with reforming UPR, ensuring that its governance is better. There were no adjustments last year. Everything was put on hold because of the pandemic, and I think that now is the time to move forward. I also want to emphasize a couple of points that Maria made, or re-emphasize. One is the fiscal plan does not say anything about reducing the number of campuses. We're expecting there to continue to be 11 campuses. There's no reduction in the number of campuses. We're just talking about the things that John was talking about more efficient administration, a better run university. Second point, no reduction in academic payroll. The payroll's not, academic payroll isn't being adjusted at all. And finally, just to underscore that the objective of the fiscal plan is to make sure no student in Puerto Rico will be financially unable to attend UPR. There's a huge amount of scholarship money, and everything is designed around the objection of everybody who qualifies for UPR can attend UPR. Nobody will be financially unable. And also to reiterate, there's a huge amount of federal money coming in. We're expecting $400 million to be coming in the next couple of years. Now is the perfect time to make these changes. They will be less painful now than at almost any time that we can imagine. We all believe, even those of us who have differences of opinion on exactly the way forward, all of us believe that UPR is an absolute crown jewel. It's a remarkable university, remarkable history, absolutely essential to the future of Puerto Rico. And we're trying to do everything we can to prod UPR forward. On Prepa, I'll just say that transformation is absolutely essential with Prepa. And Governor, I would like to thank you for what you've done to make transformation possible, for your consistent support of the LUMA agreement, which some people are not happy with, I know, but it is the way forward. It is the way to take an electricity company that is unreliable and will be enormously expensive in the future if there aren't changes made. It is the way forward in my view. As Alejandro said, Prepa is one of the key pillars on which Puerto Rico's recovery and transformation will stand. If Prepa is not transformed, we're going to see an economy that looks like the economy has looked for the last decade or two. So absolutely essential in my view. And I'll stop with that and say Betty Rosa, I believe, would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Buenos dias. First and foremost, I want to share the fact that I too agree with the fact that that UPR, La UP is the jewel, and it has given many of our students, particularly those from poor families, incredible opportunities, and it will continue to do so. Like my colleague, John Nixon, we have spent an enormous amount of time not only engaging in these conversations in terms of looking at efficiencies and effectiveness in really supporting the students of the university, but we also have had the opportunities to speak to them directly and hear their concerns. And it was quite painful to know that what they were advocating for in many ways, they had some incredible information, but they also had some misinformation. I feel that it is time to really take stock, and the need for reform has to be translated into action. I think the issue of the pension reform is critical. I think that many of the proposals have to be proposals that are taken into account and acted on. I do believe that a great deal of work, conversations have taken place and will continue to take place, but that it is important that given the stimulus dollars and the opportunities that are part of these conversations must be translated into ways to create long-term efficiencies. As a long life educator, and first and foremost, I do apologize for not being with you on my island. I really want you to know that not only John Nixon, but others on this, and I do thank Justin Peterson for the acknowledgement as an educator on the board. My interest is really supporting the work of the institution that really truly is part of the economic engine. But I must do it knowing that we will get to a better place. I know that many of our colleagues on this board have spent an enormous amount of time really poring over possibilities, listening to suggestions, meeting with the president and staff, and continuing to struggle as to how do we do this, knowing that, as John said, the students are the core and are the most important individuals in this process. So with that in mind, I do truly believe that we have to make changes in order to get to a better place. And I will be supporting the plan this morning.
Thank you, Betty. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, why don't we move to the public comment section of this part of the meeting. If anybody has a public comment or question that you would like to make, we have a microphone back there somewhere, and you should go to the microphone, or the microphone will come to you, and you have up to 2 minutes to make a comment or to ask a question. Are there questions or comments on either UPR or Prepa?
Yes, right here.
We have a question. I'm not sure where the microphone is. Oh, here it is. It's to y'all's right.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Maida Velasco. I am the Vice President of the Governing Board of the University of Puerto Rico. I have 2 minutes per question.
I think it's 2 minutes total.
Okay.
We may be a little generous with time, but the idea is 2 minutes.
I just want to say we have indeed made a lot of reforms. We have made 74% of the requests have already been implemented, and we do understand that and want to transform, administratively speaking, the University of Puerto Rico. There's still more to do. However, we have already received enough cuts that we are at the level of being able to only operate by receiving 40% from the government of Puerto Rico. That is equivalent of the benchmark that you gave us in your documentation of how it is in the rest of the United States, which is 38. Within uncertainty, that's the same. We have hit that target without removing that 94 million that you want to remove this year. Now, that 94 million is completely crucial for us for the transformation. One of the things that we have done is the reform of the retirement, okay? That all of you have said it is important, and we have done so, and of those 94 million, 40 go into that reform, okay? Then we have also seen the need to make the administrative transformation and classification of our employees, okay? That also requires funds. That's also under that 94%. Now, we have also all these projects from FEMA that need 10%, okay, of money that we are put. Those are in that 94 million, okay? Similarly, we have lost money from COVID at the medical school that is not covered by any of the federal government funds that are coming. For technical reasons, because they are for undergraduate institution, and the university, the medical school is obviously mostly a graduate school, okay? So for that reason, we need to give them $10 million, okay? And then finally, due to all the cuts that we have received, the university has been operating and paying many of their things out of their cash box or whatever you want to call it, okay? So that is not depleted. So we are asking for another 20 million in order to be able to start going back to some level of normality. So that's what is those $94 million. And we are managing to just keep those $94 million for the transformation of the university while not being, while having how you say that, a budget that is financially well-defined, okay, where we don't have to fire any faculty or or employees, okay, while increasing for 3% our faculty, not having to close any of our campuses, okay, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we are doing what is required to satisfy your demands, but we cannot afford, okay, that extra $94 million, okay? That is the main message that we have to share with you. Okay. Now, there are other comments that we receive in your document, like saying receiving revenue from a donation from alumni. That is indeed very, very important, not only for finding donations from the local graduates, but also those that are living abroad. However, it has to keep in mind that once that is achieved, that is not money that is going to go into operations of the university. That kind of donation usually come already with restriction. The person making the donation tells you exactly how they want to do that, make that investment, okay? So it is unrealistic to ask us to use that as part of our operation. And lastly, since I think that I might go overboard, okay, we all know that we are able to receive like $40 million this year because of COVID, okay? Those are funds that are very restrictive. Any of the items that I have mentioned in that 94 million request can be covered, okay? So, and they're not recurrent. This will be one shot of 400 million where, thank God, half of it is going to our students, okay? That is very important to us. Okay, and we are ready to distribute that money effectively among our students, but it's not going to solve our problems in the long term, okay? More important is that there's another 220, okay, from ARP or HERP, or I don't know if there's an overlap, I have to admit, okay, that we could lose, because in the rules, it states very clearly that an institution that has been cut, okay, will not be able to receive those funds, because the assumption is that the federal government is not supposed to be now paying your operational costs, that these are indeed additional funds to compensate for the situation where we are in. So therefore, the cut of 94% of being proposed at the moment not only will put us in jeopardy from funds that we can receive from the government, but also it will hamper our ability to put in place all this transformation, both at administrative level, academic level, and research that we want to put in, okay? So that's what I want to say.
Thank you very much. I'll just briefly make one comment on your last point, which is we are aware of those restrictions. We are looking into them, and that is a significant detail that, as I said, we're fully aware of. Maria or Natalie, do you?
I'll take a stab at it. Dr. Velasco, if I could try and answer just a handful of the things. You've raised many. So first, I wanted to assure you that we are indeed, again, as the chairman just said, reviewing the maintenance of effort restrictions, requirements, together with the government of Puerto Rico. And when we come to a final analysis, that could bring a change, and we understand that. So I want that to be very clear. The second thing is that we do in the fiscal plan respect, congratulate, and recognize the pension reform that you have suggested, but it is too small a step to bring the pension system to solvency. So we recognize it, we applaud you, and applaud the university for taking that step, but it is insufficient, and it still then requires more funding than this university is able to sustain at this point, alternatively continuing to lead to insolvency. With regard to the ARP money, though, I just wish to be clear that part of it is for lost revenues, and then that is a fungible amount. So if you can receive the monies, you can use those monies, and then you can use your own revenues for the medical science campus, for example. So, you know, this is something that $200 million, assuming we get through the maintenance of effort issues, of the 400 that you're that is available to the university through the different 3 federal stimulus packages, half for students, half, approximately $200 million for the institution, part of that can arrive not limited in terms of its usage if it's to replace lost revenues. And you've had lost revenues. You've had lost revenues from the casino revenues, you've had lost revenues from enrollment, you've had lost revenues. So there will be fungible monies that are there, one-time monies to cover one-time expenses, as you described. The last point that I just wanted to assure you is that the university has over $200 million in its bank accounts. About 160 of it, 165 million of it, is unrestricted. And so you have working capital. And I don't want anyone to leave the room thinking that there's no money in the bank, because there is. Working capital should be at least 2 months of payroll, and you're in that range. The government of Puerto Rico has to be careful to maintain working capital. Prepa has to be we had to refund with the government's support, the established working capital accounts for Prepa. Working capital is a problem throughout the government and throughout the other institutions. And the last thing I just want to say is that we seriously, sincerely wish to keep working and talking and finding solutions to all of these issues. And so I hope you will realize that, as I said, with the maintenance of effort, it's a process. We're not there yet, but we will continue to do the analysis, and whatever that outcome is, we will be sharing with you and the government, and whatever changes are necessary, to the extent that changes are necessary, the board will have to look at amending the fiscal plans.
And we will continue to cooperate.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other public comments or questions on UPR or Prepa?
Mr. Chairman, I'll be brief. Just given this exchange that I just saw between the Vice President of the University of Puerto Rico and the Executive Director of the board, I would like to say that it is very important for the board to give credit where credit is due. I mean, the Vice President of the University of Puerto Rico told us, that 74% of the recommendations of the board in the last 4 years have been followed by the University of Puerto Rico. I take it at face value. Let's validate it. But if that's true, we shouldn't be demeaning what the University of Puerto Rico has been doing. We should be respecting it. And when they're falling short, then we can point it out. The board can point it out. And continue to work with the University of Puerto Rico, because we're aligned. We want this university to prosper and to do better. Now, the maintenance of effort issue brings to mind something else, which is that fiscal plans shouldn't be cast in stone. They're meant to be living documents that should be revised as necessary when the time comes. When the Vice President is saying, keep the funding at the current level, she's saying it because of all the reasons she gave us, including the fact that the board shouldn't be counting on the University of Puerto Rico getting a lot of federal funding while it's suffering cuts required by the board. So let's make sure that we're not endangering federal funding that could be coming to the university in the coming year. I urge the board to continue, and the board staff to continue working closely with the University of Puerto Rico, because, again, let's give credit where credit is due.
Thank you, Governor. And we most certainly will continue working closely both with you and with the University of Puerto Rico on all of these issues. I think that's all the public comments we have. So what we'll do is we'll vote on each of the fiscal plans separately, one by one. So starting with UPR, is there a motion to approve the certification?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the certification of the University of Puerto Rico fiscal plan.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
I second.
Could we have a roll call vote?
Sure, if you would like a roll call. I was going to do it. I'll get everybody in alphabetical order. So we've got a motion and a second. I've been asked to deviate from the policy, which is the only policy I know of voice votes, but we'll do a roll call vote in alphabetical order. Andrew Biggs, how do you vote?
Are we voting on both plans here?
We're voting UPR first, and then we'll have a vote on Prepa.
Okay, I vote yes.
Arthur Gonzalez?
Yes.
John Nixon?
Yes.
Antonio Medina?
I must state for the record that while I support the transformation and strengthening of the University of Puerto Rico, I cannot with a clear conscience vote in favor of this proposed fiscal plan.
Thank you. So that's a no vote. Justin Peterson?
I vote no.
Betty Rosa? Do we still have Betty
Is she on mute?
on?
Sorry. Yes.
Thank you, Betty. And I vote yes as well. So it's approved by a vote of 5-2. The next fiscal plan certification is Prepa. Do I have a motion to approve that certification?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Antonio. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, John. And I'll go back to the voice vote if I may, and ask first for all in favor. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? So that certification carries as well. The next two fiscal plans that we'll talk about are Pridco and Coffina. So let's turn and we'll do the same thing. We'll discuss the Pridco fiscal plan, and then we'll discuss the Coffina fiscal plan, and we'll do board comments, public comments on each, and then a vote on each in turn. So turning to Pridco, I believe Ginorli Maldonado will be presenting that fiscal plan.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to state again for the record that in the case of Pridco, I will recuse myself due to conflict of interest.
Thank you, Antonio.
Thank you.
And that will be noted. Ginorli?
Thank you, Chairman Skill. Today, we present the 2021 fiscal plan for the Puerto Rico Industrial Development Company, better known as Pridco. Pridco was created to foster economic development in Puerto Rico by attracting investment and job creation in a variety of industries, including manufacturing, information technology, and life sciences, through the largest portfolio of industrial properties. The fiscal plan recommends the following measures and strategic initiatives to increase occupancy and to establish a path to long-term sustainability. First, improve the delinquency rate for Pridco, focusing on reducing delinquencies from 9% to 7% by fiscal year 2026. This represents an additional $3.6 million of net revenues through fiscal year 26. Second, follow through the already established shared services contracts between DDEC and Pridco, pursuant to the back office consolidation efforts as established in Act 141, 2018, with the corresponding back office reduction of 8% annually through fiscal year 25. Resign expired and soon-to-be expired leases with the current rate card that will add up to over 3.7 million square feet. This presents an immediate opportunity to increase the portfolio's overall revenue through targeted negotiations with expired tenants. Moreover, re-signing leases provides for additional certainty on future revenues as compared to the default month-to-month structure currently in place upon lease expiry under the same terms and conditions pursuant to Puerto Rico law. Implement the uniform healthcare contribution of $125 per member per month, starting in fiscal year 21, aligned with Act 26 of 2017. Adopt Pridco's pension reform measure as part of the Commonwealth's overall measure to progressively restore fiscal health to Puerto Rico. The adjustments to pension benefits occur in a manner that protects the economic well-being of all retirees. PAYGO has been forecasted using baseline actuarial assumptions consistent with the 2021 Commonwealth Fiscal Plan. The forecast for FY22 includes payments for approximately 600 pensioners that have retired from Pridco. The measures contemplated in the 2021 fiscal plan are estimated to drive an additional $13 million in surplus over the 5-year period, excluding debt service. The main drivers of these increases are an increase of $3.5 million due to a reduction in delinquency rates, and an increase of $4.4 million driven by the re-signing of expired leases at Pridco's current rental rate card. The 2021 fiscal plan includes additional strategic initiatives that have been agreed by the government that aim to improve Pridco's property management operations. Such improvements are enabled through the implementation of the following: pursue measures to drive increased occupancy, improvement in operations, and ultimately increased revenues. Develop a plan for disrepair, neglected, and damaged assets. Update the current rent card that has not been updated since 2003. Improve its long-term capital expenditure funding plans. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, board members. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ginorli. And I think I've scrambled the order a little bit, but if we can stick with the order I've announced. Germán, are you ready with Coffina? So Germán Ojeda will present the Coffina Fiscal Plan.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Thank you. We now turn our attention to the Puerto Rico Sales Tax Financing Corporation, or Coffina by its acronym in Spanish. Coffina is a public corporation and instrumentality of the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico that is an independent and separate legal entity from the Commonwealth. Coffina receives pledged sales and use tax revenues and makes debt service payments to Coffina bondholders pursuant to the plan of adjustment consummated in February of 2019. Coffina revenues are defined by the bond indenture, which requires a fixed payment transfer of sales and use tax collected by the Commonwealth. The sales and use tax transfer for FY 2022 amounts to $473 million, while the debt service will be $466 million. The difference is due to a bond tax exchange that occurred in August of 2019, exempting the bonds from federal taxation. The surplus amount of $7 million will be transferred back to the Commonwealth General Fund at the end of the fiscal year. The annual sales and use tax transfer and debt service requirement grows by 4% per year for the fiscal plan period as defined by the bond indenture. As for the operating expenses to manage Coffina, recurring expenditures are projected to be $1.4 million annually. Coffina will experience lower than forecasted investment earnings in FY 2021 through FY 2023, which fund these operating expenses. As a result, Coffina will use prior year surpluses for any shortfall in investment earnings for this period. Coffina is well capitalized to fund operations for several years without requiring Commonwealth resources. The 2021 Coffina Fiscal Plan was jointly developed by the Government of Puerto Rico and the Oversight Board and meets applicable requirements of Section 201B of PROMESA, which define the requirements to certify a fiscal plan. The joint development of the 2021 Coffina Fiscal Plan is being certified in accordance with Section 202F of PROMESA. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Germán. We'll now go to board comments on either Pridco or Coffina. Governor, would you like to comment?
Yes, with respect to Pridco's fiscal plan as proposed, I should say, first, thank you, Ginorli and the board staff for your work. Secondly, this fiscal plan is generally aligned with the public policy of the government of Puerto Rico. But there are a couple of areas in which it is not aligned, and I'll mention them. The first one is pension reform, and the second one is the elimination of the Christmas bonus. It's long been the public policy of the government to provide, as part of the compensation of our public personnel, a payment during the holiday season, the Christmas bonus. And we continue to believe that that should be respected by the board. With respect to pension reform, it is the public policy of my administration that the board should keep in mind that the principal pension system, public pension system in Puerto Rico was significantly reformed in 2013, if I recall correctly, and that extraordinary savings have been achieved as a result of that. So it is my vision and our public policy that there's no justification for additional pension cuts, either due to fiscal reasons or legal considerations. Having said that, again, I praise the board staff and the board for this fiscal plan, for Pridco's fiscal plan, and the same applies to Cofina's fiscal plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, I don't see any more. If there are any public questions or comments, please make your way to the microphone to your right and to our left. Any public questions or comments? I don't see any. So why don't we move to the vote? And we'll take the fiscal plans one at a time, starting with Pridco. Do we have a motion to certify the Pridco plan?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we certify the Pridco fiscal plan.
Thanks, John. A second?
Second.
Thanks, Justin. All in favor of certifying, please say yes.
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 Any opposed? And one abstention?
Yes, I abstain.
Has been noted. So that fiscal plan is certified. We'll move now to Cofina. Can I have a motion to certify the Cofina plan?
I move to certify the Cofina plan.
Thank you, Justin. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Antonio. All in favor of certifying the Cofina fiscal plan, please say yes.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? So that certification goes through as well. So we have one more package of fiscal plans to go through, and that is Prasa, HTA, and Kosak. So we'll start with Prasa, and we'll use the same process. We'll talk about each of the fiscal plans, then we'll have board comments, then we'll have public comments, then we'll have votes. So Prasa fiscal plan, and that will be presented, I believe, by Alejandro Figueroa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We now present for your consideration the 2021 fiscal plan for the Puerto Rico Aqueduct and Sewer Authority, better known as Prasa. Over the past fiscal years, Prasa has made measurable progress in the implementation of fiscal measures, although below the $165 million in benefits projected in the fiscal plan. By acting proactively to enhance revenues and reduce expenses, to date, Prasa has achieved a positive impact of $113 million in fiscal year 21. Most of this impact is derived from modest annual rate adjustments totaling $85 million in fiscal year 21 and approximately $250 million since 2018. Similarly important, as a result of federal debt reprofiling achieved in 2019, Prasa now has access to financing from the United States Environmental Protection Agency's Clean Water State Revolving Fund and the United States Department of Agriculture's Rural Development Program. In fiscal year 2021 alone, Prasa was able to secure $68 million in federal funds from these programs. However, to date, only $11 million have been dispersed. Other progress made during the current fiscal year includes the installation of master meters, allowing Prasa to measure up to 80% of the water produced by the system, the creation of a new asset maintenance program that focuses on preventive maintenance, and the design and publication of a request for a proposal to reduce the costs associated to the management and use of chemicals. All in, progress during fiscal year 21 has allowed Prasa to further stabilize its financial position, increase its liquidity and capital reserves, and shift its focus to much-needed operational improvements. In order to maintain its financial sustainability, Prasa must now focus on executing key operational reforms, such as water loss reduction measures, metering optimization, and capital delivery. Prasa's long-standing water loss challenges are well known. Recent studies suggest Prasa loses close to 60% of the water it produces, increasing its cost as it spends money on treating water it does not bill for, as well as reducing its ability to conserve the precious resource. As outlined before, the installation of master meters was a significant step in sizing water losses, a necessary step in addressing the issue. However, more work must be done. The proposed 2021 fiscal plan requires Prasa to go beyond accurately measuring its water production and implement ancillary initiatives like pressure management and more targeted leak detection. Together, these measures are expected to generate $13 million in savings while providing Prasa the tools and capabilities to tackle water losses in a systematic fashion. Another of Prasa's long-standing challenges is its outdated and inefficient metering infrastructure. Prasa's old mechanical meters report an estimated error margin of up to 14%, and approximately 15% of all small meter account bills are estimated, meaning that a large proportion of customers are billed based on consumption estimates, not on actual meter readings. The proposed 2021 fiscal plan requires Prasa to invest in upgrading its metering infrastructure, either through a public-private partnership process currently underway or through any other alternative available, including a self-procurement model, with the expectation that the implementation of this measure would begin in the second half of calendar year 2021. Lastly, Prasa has a unique opportunity to reconstruct hurricane-damaged infrastructure back to industry standards by leveraging FEMA's $3.6 billion in funding obligations and the $350 million in additional funds from the USDA and EPA. Taking advantage of these funds is paramount to repair and rebuild Prasa's aging and inefficient system and to gradually reduce long-term operational costs. Without the implementation of fiscal measures, Prasa's condition is unsustainable. Before taking into account the benefits from the multiple measures outlined in the proposed fiscal plan, Prasa is projected to accrue a deficit of $259 million in FY22 and a cumulative deficit of $1.4 billion through FY26. However, by executing on a timely basis each of these measures, Prasa may achieve balanced budgets from fiscal year 22 to fiscal year 26, putting Prasa on a path to the level of fiscal responsibility and financial sustainability envisioned by PROMESA. In conclusion, Prasa's long-term fiscal sustainability and its ability to consistently achieve balanced budgets and regain access to the credit markets at reasonable rates is predicated on achieving long-term operational sustainability. The proposed fiscal plan provides a path for Prasa to achieve these objectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandro. Take a quick breath, and you'll be right back with us. Our next fiscal plan is HTA, and that will once again be presented by Alejandro Figueroa.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. And I'd like to take a moment to recognize the presence of Edwin Gonzalez, the Executive Director of the Puerto Rico Highways and Transportation Authority, who is with us today. We now like to present for your consideration the 2021 fiscal plan for the Puerto Rico Highways and Transportation Authority, better known as HTA. HTA is at a crossroads. As Puerto Rico seeks to reshore manufacturing, increase air cargo operations, and attract new investments, the island's roads and transportation system will play a fundamental role in supporting each of those key economic development initiatives. For years, Puerto Rico's transportation infrastructure has been neglected. Its roads are under-maintained and in poor condition, prone to constant congestion, and its transit assets fail to provide residents and tourists with a reliable means of travel. The proposed 2021 Fiscal Plan provides a roadmap for addressing each of these deficiencies by enhancing HTA's operational and financial capabilities and resources, improving timely delivery of maintenance and capital projects, and empowering the relevant transportation entities to provide residents access to a safe, efficient, and reliable transportation system. Without the implementation of measures, HTA faces a bleak outlook, incurring average annual pre-debt service deficits of $76 million per year and a cumulative 30-year deficit of $2.3 billion. These persistent deficits significantly limit HTA's capacity to invest and maintain its roads in a state of good repair and prevent HTA from exiting Title III. The state of Puerto Rico's roads today is, in large part, the product of HTA's fiscal and operational constraints, which, without the implementation of the necessary fiscal measures, will continue. In contrast, by implementing the various fiscal measures outlined in the proposed fiscal plan, including annual toll fare adjustments, toll fine optimization, bidirectional tolling, and improved ancillary revenues, HTA can significantly improve its financial condition, achieving average annual pre-debt surpluses, not deficits, of $94 million and a cumulative 30-year surplus of $2.8 billion. Toll fare adjustments, particularly, are important, as these represent 50% of the total estimated impact received by HTA through the fiscal measures. These revenue measures, along with other operational and capital delivery measures, will transform HTA into a well-performing entity capable of consistently and cost-effectively deploying investments in maintenance and improvement of Puerto Rico's transportation system. While HTA has shown some improvement in its capital delivery programs over the past fiscal years, its ability to sustain that level of delivery is still limited. HTA's outperformance in the first half of fiscal year 21 has been followed by underperformance in each month after January 2021. The ability to deliver its capital improvement program consistently and cost-effectively is particularly important given the poor condition of Puerto Rico's roads and the risk that underperformance represents to the ability to maximize federal funds. Consistent with the need to improve and increase its ability to deliver capital projects, the proposed plan allocates enough funds for HTA to quickly bring its roads to a state of good repair, followed by a steady level of annual maintenance investments as illustrated by the blue line in the current page. Bringing the system to a state of good repair is particularly important given the 12% of interstate roads that are in poor condition, compared to the 5% maximum required by the FHWA and the 1% of roads in poor condition or roads that are managed by Metropistas that are in poor condition. If HTA is able to secure discretionary funding for strategic projects, that spend curve may be even higher than the one called for in the fiscal plan, enabling an additional $2.1 billion of capital expenditures over the next 30 years, as illustrated by the orange line in this current page. However, since both the funding and the capacity to deliver on this special project is uncertain, they are not included in the fiscal plan's financial projections. The proposed fiscal plan also reflects the implementation of the transportation sector reform, which seeks to reorganize the island's transportation system by allocating responsibility for specific type of assets, such as toll roads, non-toll roads, and transit assets, between asset-specific entities, only focus on those type of assets. The transportation sector reform is intended to address 3 root challenges identified in the Commonwealth Certified Fiscal Plan, including overlapping and fragmented responsibility for transportation assets, poor performance management, and the failure to maximize federal funding potentials. The proposed fiscal plan requires HTA to support these efforts by allocating its costs, revenues, and resources among the different asset classes, in collaborating with other transportation-related entities to achieve the objectives of the transportation sector reform. A critical component of this reform is to separate HTA's operations between toll roads, which includes PR 52, PR 66, PR 53, and PR 20, and non-toll roads, which encompass all other roads managed by HTA. Assuming the implementation of fiscal measures, HTA's toll roads are projected to generate an annual pre-debt service surplus of $92 million and a cumulative pre-debt service surplus of $2.8 billion over 30 years. On the other hand, prior to any transfer from the Commonwealth, HTA's non-toll road operations are projected to accumulate annual deficits of $100 million and a cumulative deficit of $3.2 billion over 30 years. The fiscal plan sets the Commonwealth transfer to equal the amount of these projected deficits, thus leading to a balanced budget for HTA's non-toll operations. In summary, to provide Puerto Rico's residents and businesses access to a safe, efficient, and reliable transportation system, the proposed fiscal plan prioritizes the implementation of the transportation sector reform, enhancing revenues to support investments in road maintenance, delivering on capital improvement programs to achieve a state of good repair, optimizing HTA's operations, exploring additional concessions for remaining toll roads, and restructuring legacy debt obligations to a sustainable level to exit Title III. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandro. And our third fiscal plan is the Kosak Fiscal Plan, and I believe Maria Lopez will be again presenting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Public Corporation for the Supervision and Insurance of Cooperatives, or Kosak, as it's known for a Spanish acronym, is a regulator and insurer of 111 financial cooperatives and regulator of other 153 non-financial co-ops. It serves 1/3 of the island's population and is a critical component of the island's economy, with approximately 1 million cooperative members. Like credit unions in the U.S., the cooperative system members are also its owners, with a maximum share insurance of $250,000 per person. The 2021 Kosak Fiscal Plan outlines a comprehensive set of short, medium, and long-term measures that, when implemented by the government in a timely manner, will pave the way towards a healthier, more sustainable cooperative system in the Commonwealth. The measures in this fiscal plan have been built around 4 main axes of reform for financial systems: implementing changes in governance, increasing transparency in accounting, and improving supervisory interventions, transfer of non-financial co-ops. Implementation of these measures is a most critical step in reforming Kosak and ensuring the long-term stability and soundness of the cooperative system. Governance reform. The cooperative system requires a robust, independent governance model with no affiliation or financial ties to a cooperative regulated by Kosak, to independently monitor and take necessary measures to protect the insurance fund and the depositors who rely upon it. Transparency in accounting. Replace the regulatory accounting principles with generally accepted accounting principles to avoid masking losses and creating the false appearance of stronger financial health. Improve supervisory interventions. Ensure timely interventions and final resolution for failing co-ops in 24 months. Identification, risk examination, and corrective actions are needed to protect the Kosak Insurance Fund. Transfer the non-financial co-ops regulation from Kosak to the Commission of Desarrollo Cooperativo, CDC. The transfer will decrease Kosak examiners' workload, decrease delays in Kosak examination, receivership, and corrective actions in financial co-ops. This will also provide savings in the long-term cost of the Kosak Insurance Fund. The fiscal plan provides reforms that Kosak should adopt to ensure the cooperative system can thrive into the future. The financial services industry is undergoing significant transformation as consumers' expectations for the level of service provided have grown. For the cooperative system to thrive in the decades to come, there will need to be bold steps taken to modernize and adopt the forward-leaning digital capabilities. With this, I present the Kosak Fiscal Plan, Chairman.
Thank you, Maria. once again, we'll start with questions or comments from the board, and then take questions or comments from the public, and then vote on the fiscal plans. Governor, would you like to make some comments?
Yes, I'll comment on some of these plans. Actually, Prasa's proposed fiscal plan is generally aligned with our government's public policy, but as I said before, in the area of pension reform and in terms of elimination of Christmas bonus, there's a divergence there. But that's the situation, and again I thank the board staff and the board itself for working closely with Prasa. Prasa actually is a public instrumentality, and the executive director is here, that in my view has been excelling in the recent past. It has been outperforming based on past experience, and I praise your work, Dorelis, the executive director of Prasa. With respect to HTA, the same thing pretty much happens. The fiscal plan is proposed. The proposed fiscal plan is generally aligned, but again, in the area of pension reform and with respect to the elimination of the Christmas bonus, we take exception. I should say that when we talk about revenue increases at the HTA, let me say what I have said publicly, and I have advised the board. While we're in the middle of this pandemic, nobody should be considering any kind of toll increases. Once that the pandemic is behind us and our people have a better quality of life, and the economy is doing better, then, only then, I could envision having toll increases. But any toll increase should be tied to road improvements and to an improvement in the state in the condition of our roads. I know that PR 22, PR 5, in the past, they have had toll increases, but they were obviously tied to improvements in those highways. So the same should apply to the highways that that HTA is currently managing, and I'm talking about PR 52, 53, 66, and I believe Alejandro mentioned 20, right? Is that the... So I have no objection to doing toll fine optimization as well as installing bi-directional tolling, even at the present time. But toll increases right now make no sense. I believe the board is not, the fiscal plan is not envisioning having those until the next calendar year. But still, given that we currently have no visibility as to the impact in Puerto Rico of the American Jobs Plan that is being discussed in Congress, this is an area that I'm sure we will be revisiting. And I reiterate what I said before. I respect the board's power to certify this fiscal plan, and it's in general terms its vision. But we should always be willing to revisit these documents if the scenario changes. It is very likely that Puerto Rico will have access to a considerable amount of federal funding once Congress approves what's being referred to as the American Jobs Plan. My expectation is that Puerto Rico will be treated as a state, even though we're not. Our resident commissioner is and will continue to lobby forcefully for that to happen, and I will join her along those lines. And if that happens, you'll see that the situation at HTA will be significantly different facing the future. And with respect to Kosak, all I'll mention is that some of the measures that the board is including in the fiscal plan require legislation, particularly, I believe, the one dealing with accounting practices and even the one dealing with governance. But in terms of governance, we see eye to eye. I mean, we want no conflicts of interest in the institutions overseeing the co-op sector in Puerto Rico. We want the co-op sector of our economy to be robust. Actually, I should say that the sector has been improving in terms of its fiscal health against all odds, because when this was before the board's existence, one thing that happened here, which was very unfortunate, is that a lot of these co-ops were asked to basically invest in general obligation bonds and other bond instruments of the government of Puerto Rico before the government's insolvency came about. And they came in, and they, in a way, they contributed to the government's fiscal needs, but then suffered the consequences. And they have been slowly but surely recuperating. Some of them are not in good condition, but I know that the board and Kosak will take whatever measures we need to take to make sure that the co-ops in Puerto Rico continue to provide the financing they provide and the services they provide, which are very important to the well-being of the people of Puerto Rico. So that's what I'll say. And again, I thank the board staff and the board for the fiscal plans that are about to get certified.
Thank you, Governor. Other comments? John?
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of general comments. One, I want to comment on the importance of all of these areas, right? We're talking about core infrastructure of Puerto Rico. We're talking roads, water, power, sewer, and they're all very, very important. And strategic investments in these areas are fundamental to the long-term economic prosperity of the Commonwealth. We talk about economic revitalization. We talk about economic growth. We've got to have stability, right? Not only for businesses who are looking to relocate to the island, but also for the public, right? You need to make sure that your power is going to be on. You need to make sure that your water is clean, that your water is going to be turned on. So there are very important strategic areas that we need to invest in, not just for the quality of life for Puerto Ricans, but also for the overall long-term economic growth and revitalization of the Commonwealth. Right now, though, as I mentioned a little bit before, we're in the process of really kind of right-sizing where we need to be at this point in time. There's no question that there'll be additional growth in Puerto Rico. There's no question that there's not going to be a significant impact in the federal investment that's happening in the islands. And I certainly, certainly look forward to supporting the governor's passion on where he wants to go with the Commonwealth. I think he does have a bold vision for Puerto Ricans and for the Commonwealth. But right now we have to make some pretty tough decisions, because right now we need to right size, we need to lay a foundation, we need to look at structural reforms that will really provide a solid path for Puerto Rico going forward. If we don't get this right, Puerto Rico is going to continue to struggle for decades to come. There's an opportunity. We're going through bankruptcy right now. We're right-sizing the debt. We're right-sizing the budgets. We're right-sizing where we are, right? There's one thing that's true about government, and that's that the public needs to be willing to pay for the government that it wants. And that's one thing that we've got to figure out and identify these priorities. And so at this point, we need to make sure that we're in structural balance, which we're doing with this $10.1 billion overall budget. And at the end of the day, we really want to make sure that we get these structural reforms right so there's a solid baseline going forward. There is a brighter day here. I mean, Puerto Rico is a beautiful place. We want to make Puerto Rico a place where people want to be, where your kids and your family can stay and have a productive life. And so I did this while I was in Michigan. You have to kind of hit the reset button. You've got to make sure that you're laying the right framework. And through these fiscal plans, I know there are a lot of structural reforms. I know that there are a lot of tough decisions that are made in these. But I really feel as a board member that if we get this right, we will be able to build upon where we are. We'll be able to make strategic investments in UPR, in infrastructure, in employees, in our utility grid, all of which is key to a strong economic foundation going forward.
Thank you, John. Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, if there are any public comments or questions, please make your way towards the microphone on your right. I don't see any, so why don't we move to voting. Once again, we'll vote fiscal plan by fiscal plan. Starting with Prasa, do I have a motion to certify the Prasa plan?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Antonio. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, John. As usual, we'll do a voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? The certification is approved. Moving to HTA, do I have a motion to certify the HTA fiscal plan?
I move.
Thank you, Justin. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Antonio. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Yes. Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? So that certification goes through as well. And then finally, the Kosak fiscal plan. Do I have a motion for that certification?
I move that we certify the Kosak financial plan.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Justin. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Yes. Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions, that certification goes through as well. Are there any other matters that we should talk about before we adjourn? I just want to say a couple of words before we adjourn. I just want to note or say that this has been an extraordinarily busy few months for the Oversight Board. Every month is a busy month, but this has been an unusually busy period. As many people here know, we filed a plan of adjustment a few weeks ago. Very, very significant development in Puerto Rico moving forward. That plan of adjustment has support from significant numbers of creditors. We hope there'll be even more support by the time we go to confirmation, but it has a lot of support from creditors, a lot of support from other stakeholders. We hope that we are on track for Puerto Rico to emerge from bankruptcy, ideally before the end of the year. So this, we hope, is the beginning of the end of the bankruptcy for Puerto Rico, something that Justin has been pushing for from the moment he was on the board, and the rest of us are pushing for as well. It's the beginning of the end, we hope, for the bankruptcy, and the beginning of the beginning for Puerto Rico's future, in my view, getting out of bankruptcy. Getting out of bankruptcy will move Puerto Rico towards having access to the capital markets. It will make Puerto Rico attractive and an exciting place, I think, for development. And thank you to the governor and the governor's staff for everything you're doing to make this happen as well. We've been talking about the fiscal plans. They've taken an enormous amount of work, as I'm sure you can tell. Just want to take a minute to thank Natalie Jaresko, our executive director, really our CEO. She's been been the point person in all of the negotiations on the restructuring. She and her staff have been the point people on these fiscal plans, literally working around the clock. Nobody's had any sleep. And we are extraordinarily grateful. You've heard from a number of our top staff today. And we believe that as Puerto Rico sees the results of the restructuring and of these fiscal plans, Puerto Ricans, we hope, will be extraordinarily grateful as well. So thanks to Natalie, thanks to the staff, and again, thanks to the governor for everything
You're welcome.
that you are doing to push Puerto Rico forward. Since we have no other business, I'll move that we adjourn this meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
You have multiple seconds. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed, say no. Someday there's going to be somebody opposed, but probably not while any of us are on the board to completing a board meeting. So the meeting is now concluded. There will be a press conference immediately following. Thanks to everybody in attendance for productive.
5 minutes for our press conference. The governor, I think, is going to have some comments himself.
Okay. So 5 minutes, and then we'll have a press conference.